In today's episode, we're speaking to Amanda Holmes. Amanda is the CEO of Chet Holmes International, a company which has assisted over 200,000 businesses to grow over the last 25 years. She is the daughter of a renowned sales expert, Chet Holmes, and she inherited the business at 24 years old after her father unexpectedly passed away. Amanda has since doubled CHI's clients over the last 2 years in a row. Let's speak to Amanda and find out how she changed her life by working on a mindset. Let's find out. Welcome. This is Gull, your money mindset expert. And today we have the pleasure and the honor, and I'm super excited to be speaking to Amanda Holmes. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much. We have been trying to get you on the show for a while now. So finally we're here. We're doing this live, which is amazing. So Amanda, everyone's heard the intro and everyone knows how amazing you are. But in your own words, can you tell everybody what it is that you do?
We assist companies to double their sales. We have 12 core competencies on how to do that.
Fabulous. Very short and succinct in terms of what you do. So Amanda, talk us through your journey. I mean, you didn't wake up one day and decide that's what you want to do. So how did you end up, running such a successful business? You have all these accolades and such high achievements, which is amazing for a woman, who's so young. But how did it start with you? And what made you come into sales in the first place? It's not something you normally think about as a young girl, do you?
Right. So I was a singer-songwriter.
Oh, wow.
I just released my fourth record in college, and then my father became ill. And so I dedicated that year and a half of his journey with cancer to finding a cure. We went to every kind of alternative under the sun. That's how I met my guru. I studied under an Indian guru. And he unfortunately passed away. It was 9 years ago at this point.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thank you. At that point, there was no plan for me to take over. I was a singer.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So they gave me an honorary title of chairwoman, and there were, a couple hundred staff, all double, triple my age, because we're, a world-class consulting firm.
Yes.
Coaching and consulting. And then over about 2 years, I kept watching and looking and hiring different C-suites. And ultimately, I stepped in as CEO about 7 years ago. And here we are. So
wow.
It's not expected at all, but quite a beautiful journey as I look back now. It was horrific at first, but much better now.
So, I mean, how did you, to go from, it's a complete different mindset and complete different understanding of how the world works and how business works. Because, people like to see, even people with business degrees struggle to run a successful business, especially one that's already established with the name, with your father's name at that. And he's left a legacy behind, and he's like the godfather of, of sales, especially copywriting. I know that he's an amazing individual. But how did you actually, feel, or how did you convince yourself, or how did you build up the mindset to be able to step in and take charge? Because you spent 2 years trying to hire other people. At what point did you think, okay, no, I can do this and I should do this? And how did you convince yourself? Because there's a lot of self-doubt that comes in managing 200 people when you're like in your early 20s. How did you convince yourself? How did you overcome those obstacles?
So originally it was actually, I believe wholeheartedly in having a teacher or someone to guide you, a coach. So I have a guru. She looked at me and said, Amanda, you have to step in. And I looked at her and went, I don't think so. That's pretty crazy. Right. But a truly great teacher will find the places where your biggest potential could be, and they assist to guide you there. Right. So over the years, she just kept saying, it's time for you to step in. And I just kept saying, no way. that's absolutely crazy. And I started with a lot of questions, just trying to better understand what was happening. And everybody kept saying, hey, you're asking the right questions. Keep asking. They could tell that I was understanding what was happening. And ultimately, I think what threw me over the edge, to be honest with you, I last minute decided to go climb Kilimanjaro in Africa. It was the largest freestanding mountain, for those that don't know. One of my staff, we were at an event and he's like, hey, you want to go climb with me? And I'm like, yeah, when is it? He said, oh, Tuesday. It was Thursday at the time. I'd
Oh,
never
wow.
done any hiking before. And he's like, yeah, you'll be fine. I'm like, okay. So I show up in Africa
Okay.
Monday, Tuesday, and I realized that it's 19,384 feet up in the air, crazy high, right?
Yeah.
And when I first looked at it, I thought that is completely insurmountable. There's no way I can get to the top of this. And I had extreme altitude sickness. So it actually made me very ill from day one.
Oh,
And
okay.
when I finally did summit, I realized that every difficult feat just takes one step at a time. So when I
Wow.
came back from Africa, that was like, 7 days of trekking on foot. That's when I let go of the current person that was in that spot and I stepped in.
Wow. I mean, it literally is a metaphor for what you did in your business, isn't it? Exactly the same thing. And the sickness that you had, the altitude sickness, can be represented by the sickness in your stomach, thinking about, oh my God, how do I manage 200 people, who have more expertise and who have more seniority and who are twice my age, and how do I become their boss? That's probably, I can imagine, as a young child, but yeah, as a young woman, having that thought in my mind. If I was in your place. So it makes sense, but it's such a wonderful metaphor. And I mean, I'm still flabbergasted. How did you climb the mountain without any prior training, without any understanding, without nutritional stuff? I mean, it's how? That's a miracle in itself.
I was very active. I had just gone through my yoga teacher training. I was
Okay.
practically competitive in salsa dancing. So I was
Ah,
perpetually working out. But the thing that they don't tell you is that with altitude sickness, it's actually a lack of breath that causes the altitude sickness. So smokers do really well with altitude sickness because they're used to their breath being um,
very shallow.
shallower.
Yeah.
Whereas me, I'm a trained singer. I just gotten through yoga training. Breath to me is everything. So the fact that my breathing was constrained, it was the worst thing ever for me. I take very long, deep breaths. So
Wow. Okay. So, wow. So what a metaphor. And so once you came back and you stepped into this role of the CEO for your company, what was the first day like? What went through your head on day one? Like, oh, bloody hell, what have I done?
that is so funny that you say that because the first week was just absurd. So within the first 48 hours, I got served papers for a lawsuit. Then the gentleman, one of my staff, had told my merchant services company that they didn't think that I could run the ship, so they froze all of our accounts, so I couldn't pay any of the staff on payroll. Then after that, that was like day 3. Day 4, one of my staff comes to me and goes, Amanda, we need to decide which CRM we want to do. We've paid for Salesforce for the last 5 months, but at the moment, we don't really know if we should go to that one or we should stay with our current CRM. And I'm like, what's a CRM? What's an merchant services? I'm like having no idea what any of these things are. So I learned very quickly, as my CFO used to say, baptism by fire. It was quite the interesting experience. My guru was a huge part of this, again, because Divine Bliss International is a nonprofit. I would go to these places and just kind of connect back to the earth, connect back to myself. They have a community garden, so I spent a lot of time in the garden just trying to center myself and coming back to this idea that in giving we receive, and it's about service and taking myself out of the scenario and just being focused on how can I serve my staff, how can I serve our clientele, how can I assist my family, all of this. So when I took myself out of the equation, it was much easier.
Isn't that funny? So you're pretty much saying you took yourself out your own way and things began to fall into place. That's probably one of the teachers of law of attraction, that you have to move out your own way. A lot of the obstacles in your way or in your path are placed by yourself, by your thinking, by your own limitations. When you move yourself out of the way, and you did that through meditation, through going in and kind of grounding. So I'm a big believer of grounding. I think nature can really help us.
Absolutely. Yeah. She's the quickest healer for sure, Mother Nature. But I think also not only is it that we get in our own way, but that we are focused on what can I do for me? How can I generate the money that I need because I want money? It was all about how can I let go of the ego within me and just come from a place of serving. And in this place of service, I decided that we needed to double our prices because I wasn't serving our clients appropriately because they weren't valuing what they were getting because of the price, right? So things started to really flow. I mean, I did quite a lot of serious stuff to get into the right mindset. I don't know if you want to go down that route, but
I think we will. I think that's a topic that we definitely want to discuss, but more likely to be in the money talkies. But I'm intrigued to see, your mindset and in how you overcame it. And I love that the idea that, I always say this, if you're running after money, you're always going to be running because money will run away from you. When you focus on service, when you focus on, okay, what can I do? How can I help you? And the only way to get money is to provide a solution to someone's problems, either through your products or your services. If you focus on finding solutions and helping people, money follows you, money chases you. And this is a universal thing that I think anybody who's successful can sort of tell that. Unfortunately, when you're first starting out, money is scarce and there's not much of it, especially in your bank account. So people tend to focus on money and run after money. This is unfortunately the kind of, they put the cart before the horse, and it doesn't really work out. But I'm always intrigued in saying, how does someone, who has just lost, who's lost a father not too long ago, 2 years is not a long enough period. So you're still in the grieving period, okay, not immediately, but still 2 years is very, very early. My mum passed away 21 years ago, and it's still a sore point for me. You have this multi-million dollar company, which is now with 200 employees on your shoulders. You are trying to learn on the job, even if you don't know what the CRM is. That's just the basic thing of internet, of online marketing. Like everybody knows what that is, right? So if you're asking questions like that a few days into it, which means you really were learning the job on the job. So how did you keep yourself sane? And I know you've mentioned you speak to your guru. Now, I think that's a great point to start, because I think you need to have mentors. If you don't have mentors, you can lose your way. So would you say that most of your success early on was due to the fact that you had a mentor who doesn't have to know what's going on in your business, but was able to show you spiritually, emotionally, and help you guide through from there and work out, what you need to do and how you need to center your energy and really focus on you so you can become the best version of yourself in order to serve your clients? What do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. My father's legacy wouldn't be here today without the assistance of the nonprofit and my guru, and just getting my head in a space to be able to progress, because the grief is overwhelming.
Yes.
The rest of my family, so shocked. My father was the kind of person where when he walked in a room, he filled it. He was a very big personality. So
yes, he was.
That void was very large. And yeah, it was also finding my own path as well, was a pretty big part, and still continues to be every day, to honor those that have come before us.
Yes.
And then also to acknowledge what is happening now in the marketplace, and then to be able to indicate where we need to innovate that flows with who we are as a person, because the way that my father ran his company is different than the way that I run my company now. And it had to become my own. And I think that's why 60% of second generation businesses fail, is because it's so difficult to make something that's already established your own business.
So that would be my next question. How did you, and this is the thing I discussed with you off camera, how did you step into the limelight, and not be overshadowed by your father's legacy? Because he was a giant of a man, an amazing person. People still, read his books and stuff like that, because he has such an amazing legacy they left behind. And to step in and then make it your own, because you've made the company your own so beautifully, Maya. I think that's just hats off to you, especially learning the fact that you didn't even know what you were starting off with. That's something I didn't know before. That's amazing. But it's just, how do you work on yourself on a daily basis to say, okay, no, my father was amazing, but this is what I'm going to go, and this is how I'm going to do it. How do you talk to yourself every day? How do you convince yourself? What's your daily rituals? What was going on in your mind on day-to-day basis? Because what you're saying to us is amazing and it looks fabulous from the outside point of view. But I know it seems and it sounds easy, but it wasn't. So how did a young woman, with the aid of a mentor, but how did you work on yourself on a daily basis to do, to work on yourself, convince yourself, okay, this is it, I can do this, and then go into the office and perform? Because in front of your colleagues, well, they weren't employees, they were employees, but even if you treat them as colleagues, you can't show your weakness to them. You can't show your vulnerability to them. You have to show you're the leader. You have to act like the leader. It doesn't matter of your age, your experience, or whatever. If you're the leader, you have to act like one. How did you do that? How did you go ahead and become the captain of the ship and make sure it doesn't sink? You became very, very successful instead. And you did something which is really, really scary for most businesses: doubling your price. That's unheard of. That's a way to kill your business. How did you have the gumption, strength and courage to actually decide, and then the gumption to stick? Like, now we're going to double our price. We're doing this. So talk me through there. Where was your thinking and how did you convince yourself?
Which part do you want to do? Are we talking about the business side, like the strategies and tactics, or are we talking about? I'm talking
about your mindset. The business side of it we'll talk about some other time. Okay. I'm more interested in you, in your mindset, in how did you speak to yourself? Because I think most of our battles are within ourselves. The strategies, the methodologies, they are universal and people can work those out. It's the actual convincing ourselves part which most people fail in, and that's where they struggle with.
So I'm going to back up a moment too, because one of the biggest reasons why I didn't want to step into my father's company was because he died at 55.
Wow. Very young. Very young.
And I looked at that and went, if I step in, it's like I'm stepping into his grave right next to him. That was my biggest worry. I just flashes of him sitting in the hospital and watching his body deteriorate over time, and the look in his eyes as he's dying and mortality is coming over him, right? These are the images, not the prettiest of images, that were coming through my head before stepping in. And it was, again, the guidance of my mentor, where she just would look at me and say, you can do it another way. There's another approach. So one of the things that I did, which was really extreme, I know you said maybe later, but I shaved my head. And
you did?
I did for 5 years. So Guruji had said, if you want to truly go on this pathway, you have to let go of the expectations of what everyone else thinks of you. And you have to be true to yourself and yourself first, and to be fully committed to being in that best version of yourself, to be surrendered, to connect to what I would call, or what you taught me, a higher self.
Yeah, your higher self. So
free from the emotional baggage and just connected to a logical ability to discern and make decisions based on your own inner knowledge, right? So one of the practices that I did on a daily basis was I shaved my head in the morning. This was, I was in an extreme scenario, right? It was,
and for females, that's a huge thing.
Yes. It's tied into your whole identity, right? So here
absolutely. Yeah.
It's not. So that's much more extreme. It's hard for people to say, okay, so I need to shave my head. That's not what it was about. It was about committing to myself every day when I looked in the mirror that I was going to be connected to the light within me, that I would be a conduit of that positivity. Please guide me so that I can do that in light and love. That was my intention. That was one of the things I did as a commitment. And then, little things like right before you go to bed and right after you've woken up, your brain is in beta mode. The waves of your brain are more receptive to take in information than at any other time in the day, than maybe while you're sleeping, right? Mm-hmm. So during those short bits of time, I would do different forms of meditation. So one of them, I would look at a candle and I would just repeat a mantra over and over again, something positive, like I'm connected to the light within me, and just repeat that for 30 minutes, right? When I wake up, reading scripture. For me, I read the Gita. So there's that daily practice But then a serious commitment to that because I mean, I could have died over the expectation of what everybody was thinking. And instead, it was just, no, I am going to innovate this and I'm going to find a way to do it the way that utilizes my best skill set.
Wow. Wow. And I did not know this. That is phenomenal. That takes a lot of commitment. And this is where I want to highlight, it's your commitment to yourself. Yes. And your commitment to connecting to your higher self in order for you to serve your people, your clients, your employees, the people around you to the best of your ability, not from your ego self, but from your higher self. And I think that's so commendable, Amanda. You have the utmost respect for me because I know what kind of commitment that requires. And the superficial act of, people say, oh, well, this is shaving your head. I know what that sacrifice entails because I do a lot of spiritual practices myself, so I understand that. I don't think I would have the courage to do that myself. So I know when I'm standing in your feet, it's not just the shaving your head, it's that sacrifice and that commitment to my ego's here, I am here, and I'm going to do this on a daily basis so that I become the best possible medium for divine energy to work through me in order to help all the people on the planet that I can serve through this physical body while I'm here on the planet. That's basically your mantra behind it and your point behind it. And I respect that and I love and adore that. I think, and this is why you have the success that you have, that you deserve it. It's not the strategies and the mess, but they may be great, but most of them can be downloaded anyway from divine energy, to be honest, when you connect to your higher self and intuition. So that's another conversation another time. So I do that all the time. So I know that works. It's getting to the point. The hard part is what you've done. And this is what people need to understand. When we say you're in your own way, your ego's in the way, and your commitment to connecting to your higher self on a daily basis, maybe a bit too extreme on your side. I think that was an extreme thing I can't do, but I commend you because I'm just so I'm blown away. I'm so impressed with that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Amanda. I'm so happy to hear that. So, well, go on.
I think a takeaway for those that are listening is a very simple thing. Intention is everything. So my father had the most brilliant strategies for marketing and sales. I mean, in the top 10 most recommended sales books of all time at this point. So
yeah, it is.
But the difference that I have learned is that it is in the intention in which you take each step. So all of those strategies and tactics worked for him brilliantly, but there was still this feeling of I have to prove myself because he came from nothing.
Yeah.
And there was this, determination, but it was also kind of stripped in with anger and greed and expectations and, these desires. And it was that pressure that caused him to leave so early. So I look at these things and I go, okay, if I can just shift just a millimeter and do the same strategies and tactics that are proven, but instead I do them in gratitude, I do them in service, I do them in humbleness, just that minor shift. So before a meeting, what if you just sat down and took 3 deep breaths and said, I'm committed to work from my higher self? Because the higher self will not get into angry bashes with everyone around them, right? The higher self won't go into depression and the pits of despair, right? The higher self is this beautiful place that everyone wants to be, right? So if we just set an intention, even at the beginning of every day, I would love it to see it at the beginning of every meeting. And with my trainings, I actually do just a 60-second reset where I just ask everybody, come up with your intention, because we are intentional. We're stepping out of the overwhelm. We're stepping into clarity and focus. And I don't care how big of a company, I make them sit and close their eyes and take deep breaths because we're so busy that we're forgetting to be in the now. And in the now, we find answers, right? Rather than just being in reactive mode.
Exactly. Living in the present moment is so important. But you can only do that if you are connected to your higher self and your purpose. And most importantly is that you have the right intention there and then. Otherwise, I think most people are living in the past or in the future. They are not in the present moment. And when you lose the present moment, you lose everything because the future hasn't happened and the past is already gone. And we read these things in books, we hear these things from our mentors, yet we don't understand the importance and adapt into our life. And I think you've just done that beautifully. I love that. And I think this is important. One of the best takeaways from today's episode from today would be to have the right intentions. It doesn't matter what you do. But on that note, we're going to...
And if you want to get into the present, the next time you say, I'm not in the present, take 3 deep breaths. There you go.
Perfect. Wonderful. So on that note, we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much for being with us today, Amanda. We have to have you back on Money Talkies. But for now, tell us, how can we connect with you, Amanda? Or how can we find out more about what it is that you do?
Yes. As far as online, I'm everywhere, but I spend most of my time on Instagram, and my name is Amandita Holmes there, like my salsa name, because Amanda Holmes was taken. And then on the business side, you can pick up Ultimate Sales Machine. You can get chapter 4 for free. So you don't even have to pay for that.
Wonderful, wonderful. So the links that Amanda just mentioned, if you're listening to us on the podcast, then in the show notes, we'll have all her links. And if you're watching this on YouTube, then down below in the description section, again, we'll have all her links. Do go check her out. She is an amazing kick-ass lady, and she has a fabulous company. Obviously, we'll have the links for all of that too. Thank you so much for being such an amazing guest, Amanda. We will see you very soon in Money Talkies.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening to me and Amanda today on Friday Feature. I will be back on another Friday Feature with another amazing guest, sharing their life story and finding out how they changed their life by changing their mindset. Until the next time we meet, this is Gull signing off. Take care and bye for now.